Manor Farm is badly run. Its owner, Mr. Jones, drinks too much, neglects the animals, and treats the farm as if everything living on it exists only for his benefit. The animals work, suffer, age, and die while the rewards of their labor go elsewhere. The farm is not merely poor. It is organized around power without accountability. Jones owns the land, the food, the tools, and the right to define what is normal. His neglect may be obvious, but his authority is so deeply established that the animals have almost forgotten it can be questioned. George Orwell begins with a world where exploitation feels permanent. The animals know they are unhappy, but unhappiness alone does not create revolution. First, someone must turn suffering into an idea. Section 2, Old Major's Dream. Old Major, an elderly boar respected by the entire farm, gathers the animals in the barn. He tells them that their misery has a cause. Human beings take without producing. He describes a future in which animals work for themselves, share what they create, and live without masters. His speech transforms private pain into collective understanding. Hunger is no longer simply bad luck. It is evidence of a system. Old Major also warns them that rebellion can fail if animals begin copying the behavior of humans. The enemy is not merely one man. It is domination itself. His vision is simple enough to unite everyone. That simplicity gives it strength, but it also creates danger. A complex society will eventually be built from slogans, and slogans can be changed by whoever controls the words. Section 3, Animalism. After Old Major dies, the pigs develop his ideas into a philosophy called Animalism. Snowball, Napoleon, and Squealer become its main interpreters. The pigs are more literate than the other animals, so they naturally become teachers. At first, this appears practical. Someone must explain the principles, organize meetings, and prepare for resistance, but knowledge immediately creates hierarchy. The pigs do not only understand the ideas better, they gain the power to define what the ideas mean. This is the first quiet shift in the farm's future. The revolution has not yet happened, yet interpretation is already concentrated in a small group. Section 4, The Rebellion. The rebellion comes sooner than expected. Jones forgets to feed the animals, and hunger pushes them past fear. They break into the food stores. When Jones and his men attempt to stop them, the animals fight back and drive the humans from the farm. The victory feels spontaneous, complete, and almost miraculous. The animals destroy whips, chains, reins, and other symbols of control. They rename the property Animal Farm. For the first time, the farm belongs to those who work it. The early days of the revolution contain genuine freedom. Orwell does not present every rebellion as meaningless. He shows why oppressed people believe in one. The problem begins when liberation becomes a memory used to justify new forms of control. Section 5, The 7 Commandments. The pigs write the principles of animalism on the barn wall as 7 commandments. These rules are meant to protect equality and prevent the return of human habits. The commandments transform revolutionary hope into public law. They matter because every animal can point to them and say, "This is what we agreed to become," but most of the animals cannot read well. They depend on the pigs to explain the words. A written law is only powerful when people can remember, understand, and defend it. On Animal Farm, the rules appear public, but access to their meaning is already unequal. The barn wall will become the battlefield where truth itself is rewritten. Section 6, The First Harvest. The first harvest after the rebellion is a success. The animals work harder than they did under Jones because the farm now feels like their own. Boxer, the powerful cart horse, becomes the symbol of labor. He believes that every problem can be solved by working harder. The harvest proves that cooperation can function without a human master. Yet it also reveals different roles. The animals perform physical labor while the pigs direct and supervise. At first, this division seems reasonable. The pigs are planning, not resting. But the difference between leadership and privilege is often created gradually. A revolution can survive hard work. It becomes vulnerable when sacrifice is demanded from everyone except those giving the orders. Section 7, The Milk and Apples. The animals notice that the cow's milk has disappeared. Soon, apples are reserved for the pigs. Squealer explains that pigs need special food because their thinking is essential to the farm. He claims this is not selfishness but responsibility. Without healthy pigs, Jones might return. This argument becomes the model for every future privilege. The pigs do not say they deserve more because they are superior. They say they require more because everyone else depends on them. Fear of Jones becomes a weapon. Any objection can be answered with the threat of the old world returning. The farm's first betrayal is small enough to seem practical. That is why it succeeds. Section 8. Snowball and Napoleon. Snowball and Napoleon become rivals. Snowball is energetic, persuasive, and full of plans. Napoleon is quieter, less interested in debate, and more focused on control. Their conflict is not simply between good and evil. Snowball also enjoys authority and assumes the pigs should lead. But he still believes in discussion, education, and collective participation. Napoleon studies power more directly. He understands that controlling force may matter more than winning arguments. While Snowball organizes committees, Napoleon takes puppies away from their mothers and raises them in isolation. The farm notices the puppies disappear, but no one yet understands why. Power often prepares itself before it announces itself. Section 9. The Battle of the Cowshed. Jones and other men return to retake the farm. Snowball organizes the defense, and the animals defeat them. The battle becomes a sacred story of the revolution. Snowball is wounded and praised as a hero. The animals create medals, ceremonies, and a name for the victory. At this stage, shared memory strengthens the farm. The battle proves that the animals can defend what they built. Later, the same memory will be altered. Orwell shows that history is not only a record of the past, it is a source of legitimacy. Whoever controls the story of the battle can decide who deserves power in the present. Section 10. The Windmill. Snowball proposes building a windmill. He argues that it could generate electricity, reduce labor, and improve life for everyone. Napoleon opposes the plan. The debate divides the farm. The windmill represents more than technology. It represents the promise that sacrifice today will create comfort tomorrow. That promise can inspire hope, but it can also justify endless suffering. During the final debate, Napoleon releases the dogs he raised in secret. They chase Snowball from the farm. The argument ends not because Napoleon proves Snowball wrong, but because force replaces discussion. This is the true political turning point. The revolution remains alive in name, but collective decision-making is over. Section 11. The End of the Meetings. Napoleon announces that Sunday debates will stop. A committee of pigs will make decisions for everyone. Squealer explains that open debate is dangerous and inefficient. Napoleon, he says, has taken on the burden of leadership. The animals are confused, but they lack the language to resist. They remember that the revolution promised equality, yet they are told that obedience now protects the revolution. The structure of power changes while the symbols remain the same. This is how authoritarian systems preserve legitimacy. They do not always destroy the old ideals. They claim exclusive ownership of them. Section 12. The Return of the Windmill. Soon after expelling Snowball, Napoleon announces that the windmill will be built after all. Squealer insists that the plan belonged to Napoleon from the beginning, and that his earlier opposition was a strategy to remove Snowball. The animals are stunned, but the explanation is delivered with confidence, because they cannot verify records and do not fully trust their own memories. The lie becomes difficult to challenge. The windmill is now presented as Napoleon's vision. Political power does not merely steal ideas. It rewrites the past, so theft appears like leadership. Section 13. Boxer's Loyalty. Boxer responds to every crisis with greater effort. He develops two personal beliefs: work harder and trust Napoleon. His loyalty is sincere. He is not foolish in the simple sense. He is strong, generous, and morally serious. But he assumes that personal sacrifice can solve political corruption. This makes him useful to the pigs. Boxer represents the tragedy of exploited loyalty. His strength keeps the farm alive, but his refusal to question authority helps keep the system unchanged. A corrupt government does not survive only through cruelty. It also survives through the goodness of people who cannot imagine their loyalty being used against them. Section 14. Trading with Humans. Napoleon announces that Animal Farm will begin trading with humans. The decision appears to violate the early principles of the rebellion. The pigs claim that no rule ever prohibited trade. The animals vaguely remember otherwise, but no written commandment seems to support them. A human intermediary named Mr. Whimper begins visiting the farm. The boundary between animals and humans starts weakening. The pigs justify each compromise as necessary for survival. The deeper pattern is clear. Principles are treated as permanent when they limit ordinary animals, but flexible when they limit those in power. Section 15. The pigs move into the house. The pigs move into the farmhouse and begin sleeping in beds. The animals remember a commandment against beds, but when they check the wall, the wording now appears to ban only beds with sheets. Squealer explains that a bed is merely a place to sleep, and that sheets are the true human luxury. The change is absurd, yet carefully designed. The rule has not been erased. It has been edited just enough to protect the pigs. This method is more powerful than open rejection. If the pigs simply admitted betrayal, the animals might resist. By altering language, they make betrayal look like obedience. Section 16. The windmill falls. A violent storm destroys the unfinished windmill. Napoleon immediately blames Snowball, claiming he entered the farm at night and sabotaged it. There is no evidence, but Snowball has become a perfect invisible enemy. Every failure can now be explained through betrayal. The animals are ordered to rebuild. The windmill's destruction should raise questions about planning and leadership. Instead, it becomes a reason for more obedience. Fear turns political failure into political advantage. Section 17. The Hens' Rebellion. Napoleon orders the hens to surrender their eggs for sale. The hens resist by flying to the rafters and breaking their eggs rather than giving them up. Napoleon responds by cutting off their food. Several hens die. This is the first organized rebellion against the pigs from within Animal Farm. It is also the moment when the new government openly uses starvation against its own citizens. The same farm that rose against hunger now creates hunger as punishment. The revolution has completed a moral reversal, even though its language remains unchanged. Section 18. The Confessions. Napoleon gathers the animals. The dogs drag forward several individuals accused of helping Snowball. Terrified animals confess to impossible crimes. They are executed immediately. The scene destroys the emotional foundation of Animal Farm. Until now, fear had grown gradually. Now, public violence makes obedience absolute. The animals remember that killing one another was forbidden. When they check the wall, the commandment appears to forbid killing without cause. The phrase "without cause" gives power unlimited freedom because the rulers define the cause. Law has become decoration for violence. Section 19. Beasts of England is banned. After the executions, the animals sing the revolutionary song Old Major taught them. Squealer announces that the song is now forbidden. The rebellion, he says, has been completed, so the song is no longer necessary. This is another decisive moment. The pigs do not only control labor and law, they begin controlling emotion and memory. The song connected the animals to a future beyond the present. By banning it, Napoleon removes a language of hope he cannot control. Authoritarian power fears old revolutionary symbols once those symbols begin judging the revolution's leaders. Section 20. The Cult of Napoleon. Napoleon becomes increasingly distant. He appears rarely, surrounded by dogs, ceremony, and invented titles. Poems praise him. Songs celebrate him. Every success is attributed to his wisdom. The animals are encouraged to see Napoleon not as a public servant, but as the source of all safety and prosperity. A leader cult replaces collective identity. The original rebellion was built around the belief that no master was necessary. Now the farm is trained to imagine that nothing can function without one. Section 21. The Second Battle. The humans attack again and destroy the windmill with explosives. The animals fight bravely and eventually drive them away, but the victory is hollow. The windmill is gone, many animals are injured, and the farm has lost years of labor. Squealer declares the battle a triumph because the animals still possess the land. The pigs control the meaning of victory. Material disaster becomes symbolic success. When propaganda becomes strong enough, reality no longer needs to improve. It only needs to be described correctly. Section 22. The Whiskey. The pigs discover whiskey in the farmhouse. Napoleon drinks heavily and appears close to death. The next day, he recovers. Soon, the pigs begin planning to grow barley. The rule against alcohol is quietly altered so that only drinking to excess is prohibited. Again, the commandments bend around the behavior of the pigs. The wall no longer protects the revolution from corruption. It records corruption after it happens. Section 23. Boxer's collapse. Years of labor finally destroy Boxer's body. He collapses while working on the windmill. The other animals expect him to receive medical care and retirement. Napoleon announces that Boxer will be sent to a veterinary hospital. A van arrives. Benjamin the donkey reads the words on its side and realizes it belongs to a horse slaughterer. The animals chase the van, calling for Boxer to escape, but he is too weak. Later, Squealer claims the hospital purchased the van secondhand and never repainted it. The explanation is enough for many animals. Soon the pigs acquire more whiskey. Boxer's fate is the novel's cruelest betrayal because the farm consumes the life of its most loyal worker and then rewrites his death as gratitude. Section 24. The commandments disappear. Years pass. Many animals who remember the rebellion die. The pigs walk on two legs, carry whips, wear clothes, and openly behave like humans. The 7 commandments disappear. In their place remains a single principle declaring equality while granting special status to some. The language of revolution is not completely abandoned. It is emptied of meaning. This final commandment demonstrates the ultimate power of propaganda. Contradiction no longer needs to be hidden. The rulers can say equality while practicing hierarchy because the population has lost the memory, education, and confidence required to object. Section 25. Pigs and men. The pigs invite neighboring farmers to dinner. They drink, negotiate, and congratulate one another. The humans admire how efficiently Napoleon extracts work from the animals with little food. Outside, the animals look through the window. They see pigs and men arguing over cards, but their faces have become impossible to distinguish. The ending completes the novel's central cycle. The revolution removed one ruling class but failed to prevent another from taking its place. Animal Farm is not saying that change is impossible. It is warning that revolution without education, memory, accountability, and shared power can reproduce the system it destroys. Napoleon wins because he controls food, force, language, law, and history. Squealer wins because he makes lies feel more reliable than memory. Boxer loses because loyalty is treated as a substitute for judgment. The animals do not lose freedom in one dramatic moment. They lose it through a sequence of small concessions, each presented as temporary, necessary, or protective. That is the final message of Animal Farm. Tyranny does not always arrive by openly rejecting equality. Sometimes it arrives by claiming to be equality's only defender. The revolution is not finally defeated when the pigs begin walking on two legs. It is defeated much earlier when the animals stop trusting their own memory.